And welcome back to another episode of Indieventure. This episode is super special as it's our Game of the Year episode. Woo! So that's very exciting. As always, I'm here with my two lovely co-hosts, Rebecca Jones.
Hiya.
And Liam Richardson.
Hello.
Right, so here's how it's going to work. We each have chosen 5 games that we've played this year. And what we're going to do is we're going to take it in turns to say one of our picks until we get to our last picks, and that'll be our personal game of the year. And last year, we all kind of had like similar takes, but the main one was that Dredge was like our Indieventure game of the year, which was very cool. But this year is a bit different because we've all played a bunch of different games. There's hardly ever overlap, which we love. But yeah, so that'll make for some kind of interesting discussion. We'll kind of see where we land at the end of the episode and see where we go from there. But yeah, so that's the episode. So to jump straight in, how difficult was it for you two to choose your top 5?
Extremely.
Excruciatingly painful would be my...
Fantastic. Let's move on. We were, before this episode in the week, we were talking about the excruciating decisions coming with our top 5 picks. And yeah, we all agreed that this year's been particularly hard for different reasons, which is good, which I think we might talk about a little bit.
I think it might come up, yeah.
Yeah, do we want to talk a little bit about it now? Just in terms of did you guys have an immediate game of the year and then it was 2, 3, 4, 5, or 2 that you these are definitely locked in and it was 3 others that were hard? What was the balance?
This is the first time I've ever done a game of the year list where it hasn't felt solid until 4 minutes before the episode where I swapped something out and replaced it. And my number 1 I finished 3 days ago. So it was everything to play for right up until the last second. And I'm not entirely sure what that's indicative of. I know we discussed this a lot in the last episode. So if you want to hear more about our takes about 2024 for indies, please do go listen to that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still not entirely sure I've made the right choices. I felt like 1, 2, and 3 I was absolutely certain about. Those were my game of the years, no problem. I wanted those to be represented. But 4 and 5 was a wild west. It really was. There was people shooting each other. There was horses on the loose.
How many games are we talking here?
For me, it was between 5 games for the last 2 slots. And there's going to be
That is quite the shootout.
Some people in our Discord are going to be a little bit upset, I think, the things I left on the table. But we'll see.
And how about you, Rebecca? What was your shootout situation? Well, yeah, it was surprisingly similar. My number 1 game I knew it was probably going to be my indie game of the year as I was playing it. Probably my overall joint overall game of the year as I was playing it. Number 2 was equally locked in as sort of by the time I got to the end of it. 3 is a little bit of a I liked it. It grew on me a lot over time. 4 and 5 were just absolutely. It was so hard because there's been so many games this year that I've liked but not loved. This has been such a 4-star year for me overall, which is great. There are so many really good games. But when it comes to what do you think you want to highlight at the end is it was so difficult. And you guys know, because you've been with me through this day-long process of me agonizing over my 4 and 5 picks. Yeah, it's been a kind of strange year for a lot of reasons and for trying to connect with media in that sense for me as well. And I've chosen to highlight things that are rogue choices, but I think I have a lot to say and that I think have meant something or defined the year in gaming for me, even though I think there were better, as Liam said, better games left on the table, but ones that I personally had less to say about. So
yes.
Yeah, painful. And it's not just indies because I'm doing this at work for AAAs as well. And I'm going through the exact same process on the other end. So don't you worry. It's...
Yeah, because you've played a load of games this year.
We should talk about that.
God.
I've played about 120 games this year, not all to completion, obviously. About 40 to 50 of those were indies. So yeah,
Wild.
It's been a lot. Also, I did a little bit of maths earlier. I think it's probably worth saying on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked out that about 2% of the time I've spent alive this year has been spent in Game and Ace Attorney. So that's really, like, no wonder I can't bloody think about anything else. 2% of a year is mad. Why have I done this to myself?
That is actually crazy. That is so
No.
That is wild. Yeah. It feels like you need to report that on a doctor's form next time you see your GP.
Yes.
Like, how many units of Edgeworth do you consume on a yearly basis?
So, like, not going to sidebar into this too much, but I'm writing an end of year thing about Ace Attorney, obviously for work, and I tracked it down. I tracked down the guy at Capcom who fucking loves Edgeworth so much that he made this year happen, essentially. And I'm going to link to that interview in my roundup, and it's very, very interesting stuff.
Oh my God, that's
There's just one producer at Capcom who was like, I fucking love Edgeworth so much. I made this the year that I was going to get every like outstanding mainline Ace Attorney game, every investigations game. The merch was going to be all about Edgeworth. I made it happen. I'm like, I'm so happy for you, man.
King behavior.
The only person who has had a more Ace Attorney themed year than me. Like, I respect it. I respect it.
A tough crown to take. Oh. Yeah, we have no choice but to stand.
Oh, it's just me and everybody who reviewed both collections that came out this year, right? We're all just like hollow-eyed, but like sort of weirdly joyful about it. But also you realise that you spent 165 hours playing things that aren't bloody eligible for any Game of the Year votes because they're all remasters. It's been a lot.
Oh,
it's been a lot.
Yeah. Oh, this feels like a rehash of that episode we did 2 episodes ago.
My goodness,
yeah. Oh, which so many people have talked to me about, by the way.
Yeah,
I've had so many people come to me and be like, I was so, like, triggered by what you were talking about.
I've had a few people say that to me as well. All in the industry still.
Yes, all in the industry.
How was your list to put together?
Yeah, so my top 5, my top 2 were locked in. And then 4 and 5 I decided on. But 3, it was that problem of like 2 games of the same genre, and it doesn't make sense to put them both in and knock one of the others out.
Yes.
I was like, I almost have to decide between these 2 because what they do and what they convey is quite similar. So for me, it was like that middle ground of the top 5 that I was very much like, oh. But I think for me, the 5th slot, there was like a good handful of games. I think there was maybe like 6 or 7, but then I whittled that down to like 3. And yesterday I was switching between the 5th spot between 2, and then I just decided on my first gut feeling. So it's very much that. But there has been, I've enjoyed a lot of games this year. More than last year. I was looking at my list last year, and this year I've enjoyed, like, in terms of like if I were to rate games this year, I've played a good solid group of games which I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm going to remember 2024 as, like, these are my games. And that's, hopefully that's my top 5/6, 7.
Yeah, I do get what you meant though. Like, I definitely found myself in a similar position with a couple of things where I think probably the games that were probably 6 and 7 for me were a similar situation where they were so close in terms of genre that I'm like, they can't kind of break the top 5 because of that. So yeah, I definitely.
Right. I have a wheel ready because we need to just decide our order. We need to decide who's going first, second and third, and then we'll keep going in that around.
Flashbacks to the draft.
Click.
We're obsessed now with making it all just like...
Oberton!
The bells! Wedding witch bells. Right. Okay, here we go. Click to spin. And the person who's going first is Liam. Liam will be going first.
Again.
Followed by...
Oberton.
Followed by Rebecca. So it will be Liam, Rebecca, and then me. So if we're all good with the opening, let's talk about Game of the Year stuff. This is so exciting.
Oh, let's do it.
Yay.
Okay, well, I guess I'll dive straight into it. My number 5 for 2024 is UFO 50. pause for music and for Rachel to simmer quietly in the corner of the Discord chat. UFO 50 was fighting for 5th place, but I've really ummed and ahed about putting this in here because I don't know if I love this game. I think it's, in the majority, it's quite abrasive. I think I can't tell if it's purposefully hard to enjoy, but as an achievement, I think UFO 50 is peak indie games, and I have to celebrate it in some way. So UFO 50 is by Mossmouth, which is a collective of developers that you may know, most notably Derek Yu of Spelunky fame. And this is a collection of 50 brand new full games, not micro games, that have all been created within the mythos of the game by a company called UFO Soft. These games came out on their fictional console, the LX1, the LX2, and the LX3 between 1982 and 1989. And this collection contains games from a huge range of genres. You have puzzle games in there, platformers, deck builders, RPGs, racing games, point and clicks, idle games. And it is, the breadth and scope of it is absolutely stunning. Now, I haven't played every game in this collection yet. Some people might think, well, why is it even on your list? It's on this list because the games I have played, even though I haven't gelled with all of them, and all of you Barbuto, or whatever that first game is called, nerds out there, you're wrong. And I don't know how anyone likes Barbuto. If that's even what, I can't remember the name. That's how much I don't respect the first game in UFO 50.
The Barbuto disrespect.
Yeah. In this house, we hate Barbuto. Barbuta, I don't care.
I don't.
But the games I have played, I've had such a joyous, wonderful time playing it. It's like opening up a little present, Christmas themed. Oh, hello.
Ooh.
Every single time I boot up the game, and I'll try it out, and I'll either play it for 5 minutes or I'll play it for, in the case of Party House, which
oh my God.
I was tempted just to put Party House at number 5, not UFO 50 as a collection. That game is, I played that game for about 2 weeks every single day.
My God.
Party House I will give a special shout out to because that is a deck builder where you're trying to invite a certain character to a party and you've got to add new people to your deck and then you draw them randomly and some of them give you fun and some of them give you money, and if there's too many rowdy people in the room, the police will come, or if there's too many people in the house, then the fire brigade will come, and you're trying to draw these cards randomly but also in a structured and strategic way so that you win. It's absolutely phenomenal. Buy UFO 50 just for Party House. But all the games on offer, I think, are mechanically innovative, and every game in the collection uses the limitations of the time frame it's imitating to create weird and wonderful retro-inspired games with modern game design sensibilities. And even though it might put some people off because the graphical style ranges from NES to Super Nintendo, and I know that a lot of people might not be into that kind of retro pixel aesthetic, there is a treasure trove of incredible indie games in here. So many that could have been released as their own games, Party House. But yeah, I just thought this was a wonderful experience. Even if the games themselves, I didn't love all of them, the act of just exploring and uncovering UFO 50 was one of my favorite experiences of the year. And I adore that I've still got more to find. My journey with this game is not yet done. Yeah, a really, really special thing. Rachel, would you like to counter everything I've just said?
Not at all. Actually, I think that was a very nuanced take because I think that was I've played around, I think I said before on the podcast I played like 35. I hadn't. I played quite a lot less. But that just shows you like how much like diversity there are in like the games. Yeah. And as much as like one or two definitely clicked with me, I think for me personally, this arcadey style just wasn't really suited to me as like the games I like to play. But like you said, It is so indie that I'm really happy that we are talking about it in our 2024 roundup. I feel like I would miss it if we weren't talking about it. So as much as I didn't really gel with it, like you said, I really appreciate it for like what it is and what it's trying to do. And Yeah, I really did enjoy one or two of the games, but a lot of them I was just like, I'm just not clicking with this. But that's the thing, maybe the last, like if I just keep playing the games, maybe the last 5 I play will be absolute bangers. I've just not like played them yet, and that's like really cool. So yeah, I'm happy to see that.
There's maybe a, by the way, that was way too diplomatic. I was expecting something way spicier. But I think there is a time investment in this game. Like you're saying, I might get to them at the end. That's going to take a while to get there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think some people just won't have the stomach for that. I think it's a game made for a very specific type of player, which again, I respect the hell out of, right? Because it's so niche and it's so weird in what it's trying to do. So genuine and authentic. But I'm glad you tried it. It sucks it wasn't for you. That's always the worst thing about this, isn't it?
Oh, it's so frustrating when that happens. You're just like, oh, everyone's talking about this game. I want to play it. And then you're just like, oh, I didn't quite click with it. I'll keep playing to see if it, and it doesn't. If it doesn't click with you, that's fine. The only reason I'm playing it is because the games are so diverse and so different. Like, Good pick. Very happy. Rebecca, do you have anything to add to UFO 50?
I do not, because despite all of the games I've played this year, UFO 50 has not yet made it onto...
Oh,
No, I have a lot of respect for both of the opinions that I just heard. They're good opinions and people should listen to them. That's my whole contribution. I'm sorry.
Well, what's your number 5 then, Rebecca?
My number 5. Okay, so this is the one that I've agonized over all day because it comes with some massive caveats, but also with just like the fact that it has brought me so much joy this year and I couldn't really bear to leave it out. Which was okay. Liam will not admit to this because he didn't have the courage to put this on the list, but I know that he meant it. I know that on the inside he meant it. See, you didn't think I was going to be the spicy one, did you? Your initial ratio was going to be the spice.
Blindsided me. Absolutely just stabbed me in the ribs when I wasn't expecting it.
I'm so mean today. No, your picks are really good.
Bleeding joy. It's fine.
I want to talk about Supermarket Simulator. I'd say hold for music, but doesn't even have music.
Yes, it doesn't. I'm going to put some ambient Tesco background music in it.
Yes.
Ding dong. Clean up on aisle 2.
Oh my god, Mick is playing 2 Point Hospital again at the moment, and so that whole announcer voice is really stuck in my head.
Oh yeah.
She's brilliant, her. Yeah.
She is great. Supermarket Simulator is one that we've talked a bit about on the podcast already. It is by Nocta Games, who is a solo dev. It has been in early access since February of this year. Oh. And it's a very weird one because like most games with simulator in the name, it has a lot of what you expect from that general genre on Steam. It's very clearly made with an asset pack. It's quite janky, but honestly, it's janky in a way that gives me a lot of like good nostalgia. It looks like this was made by a like mid-tier German studio in 2003, but obviously it's 2024 and it was, one guy in his bedroom, presumably. But it's like that was kind of my era of like finding all the sort of like weird games that were available at wherever I was buying games at the time. So it has that nostalgia for me. There's also like a little, I want to acknowledge, the controversy around the suspected use of AI art just in the marketing materials, not in the game itself, which I have a bit of a question mark over, but also that's not confirmed. And so it felt weird to not talk about it on the basis of like an unconfirmed suspicion that like, I don't know, it's a lot, like, as we say, scandal noted, but let's move on to what makes this game good, because really this has been for like 6 months on my list of games that have really stood out to me in some way this year. So I did really want to talk about it because I think it demonstrates the thing that I so often say, which is that in every genre of game, there is always something that you will really click with if you consume enough of it. Because like these weird simulator games, right? They are usually just so weird. And like, it'll be like, oh, you're running a supermarket, but really you're chasing down drug dealers and beating them up with baseball bats. And it's just kind of whatever a solo dev or two mates who are making like a little weird Steam game want to throw at the wall. Yeah. This actually does have a really solid central theme. I really respect what the dev's doing in terms of like, obviously, there's not a lot being done on the graphics, but it's one person who's bought an asset pack and is actually working really hard on like content updates. The gameplay is surprisingly polished for what it is. There's also a weird kind of like fantasy fulfillment aspect for me. specifically in the fact that it's about running a little corner shop and basically slowly expanding it into this like independent supermarket empire, in that is kind of the thing that when I want to run away and join the circus, that's what I want to do. So I came into this game quite already with like genuinely loads of respect for supermarket workers, you know, because of like how vital that job is. And we don't always acknowledge it as one of the vital jobs in our society. And the fact that like through the pandemic, people who did those jobs, you know, were frontline and deserve a hell of a lot of respect for that. But it is kind of the opposite of being in games media in a lot of ways. And so it is just like, it's kind of this weird fantasy fulfillment for me, but there's so many things that I like the way that this game is focusing genuinely on improving the simulation and like keeping it quite on theme and also on being moddable. So if you want the weird experience, you can mod it in because it's quite receptive to modding, but it in itself is not doing the incredibly strange things some of these games do in having like a huge open world where it just goes off the rails. And if you even like poke into it a little bit, you'll suddenly be in a completely different game. You're like, this is just like, I mean, fair play. One of the nice things about, you know, the ability for someone on their own to play around and make a publishable game is that you get some incredibly strange and niche stuff. But as you can tell, this game actually does have quite a lot of wider appeal, as shown by the fact that it has really taken off in like streaming circles this year. In fact, when I got my my YouTube gaming not wrapped, whatever they call it, because they can't call it wrapped because that's Spotify. This was one of only 2 games that I've been following this year that actually got its own like card. You know, as an acknowledgement from YouTube of the fact that it went viral this year. The other one being the Exit 8, which I probably would have been mentioning were it not for the fact that actually came out tail end of last year. Yeah, I think this is just such a like charming, like relaxing game almost. It's quite meditative the way it's got this gameplay loop. I mean, we know that I love simulators, right?
Yeah.
I mainly into life sims, but I also do genuinely like business and management sims a lot as well. So this ticks a lot of boxes for me. It seems like a weird pick, but genuinely looking back over the games that have really defined this year for me, this one totally deserved to be on the list. It's just quite a nice experience.
Love that.
It's a thinking 6 and a heart 9.
Yes. Oh, so true. Absolutely 100%.
It might be a thinking 4. Really, but it's
I totally know what you mean. I totally know what you mean.
But it's so meditative in the way that few games are, in the act of stocking bread and ordering new bread and checking people out, and then slowly how you hire people, the dumbest people who've ever lived, who will attempt to stock your shelves. And you are totally right. You know, the act of playing it is just so mechanically solid, I guess, despite the jank, that you can waste away hours playing it. Yeah,
the actual core gameplay is good. This person has got talent in terms of like creating a gameplay loop. You know, it'd be lovely to see them, well, obviously depending on what they want out of life, but see them get noticed on the basis of the fact that you know, clearly they're not too bothered about like the graphics and the art and that sort of thing, but in terms of actually programming the gameplay, there's clearly a lot of care and thought gone into it, as well as I say, keeping it on theme. And it's genuinely made me think about the way that I interact with like buying, you know, stuff just coming off shelves, and like the fact that just just happen.
That relationship.
And even though you know, obviously the idea of like the supply line is massively simplified, it still has made me think about that a lot this year. So yeah, just a good word in for that.
Yeah, it's very indie. I love it.
It's so indie.
Before we move on from this point, I had a thought earlier that this is very nostalgic as well because of what you're saying about how viral it went. It's very mid-2010s YouTube bait, if that makes sense, in a way that few games are these days. But I think because my relationship with this game has been split equally between me playing it and watching the game.
Yeah, same.
Which is
100%.
One of the best sort of like classic simulator playthroughs I've seen in a long time.
It's been
Aaron
lovely.
scream about that is just fantastic. It's a very nostalgic game in many, many ways. And yeah, I think it's also great. I really like this game.
Hell yeah. I think that would be a nice surprise for listeners, because I don't know if many people in our Discord were chatting much about Supermarket Sim, so that would be a nice one.
I think
nice
it wouldn't have been on my radar at all if I didn't spend an ungodly amount of time on YouTube gaming content. Like, let's be real. But, you know, that's part of how I interact with the games industry, and I might as well acknowledge that.
Hell yeah, we love that.
Very, very valid.
Right, so on to me,
on, Rachel.
And my 5th choice is Flock. So yeah, Flock is a game by Hollow Ponds and Richard Hogg, two collaborators who I've loved a lot of their games. They're known for a lot of like quite weird oddity kind of games. So there was Wilmot's Warehouse, there's I Am Dead, there's Hohokum. And actually, speaking about that, Flock is supposed to be kind of like a spiritual successor-ish to Hohokum. So essentially, this is a creature collection sim. You play as a shepherd who flies on a really big bird, and you can fly around this very cutesy pastel world. And the idea is you're helping your aunt fill out her official creature guidebook. And what that means is that you, fly around this landscape. When you spot a interesting creature, you need to charm it by kind of doing a little dance, but also kind of controlling how close you are to how far away you are. And then once the creature is happy that you have respected its boundaries and you're just very pleasant, you can add them to your flock and it'll be added to your guidebook. This is a very relaxing game. It's a very breezy game. It's very whimsical. The creatures are very cute. They're essentially like little potatoes with like little faces that zip around, fly around. Some of them are look like almost like silly string. Some of them are whales. There's like bigger ones that have kind of like boss levels, but I mean, it's nothing like a boss. They're just a bit bigger and a bit more difficult to find. But yeah, the reason why I really connected with this game is I love creature collection sims, but I do feel like Flock has a more like naturalistic take on creature collecting in terms of like whenever you like in Ooblets or Pokemon, like the creatures are kind of just like plonked there. I mean, in Pokemon, I guess they have regions, but in a lot of these creature games, they're just there. In Flock, there's like an ecosystem. Like these creatures have their own environments that they prefer, times of day when they come out. The way that you have to approach them is different. You have different whistles. And you really have to kind of pay attention to the creature that you're seeking out, its characteristics and its attitude. And when you've collected it, even your aunt will kind of like pop up on the screen and kind of quiz you on like what your creature you're looking at. And so you really kind of get to grips with like this like world of wonderful creatures. And I just think that's really cool. And yeah, like I said, it's out of all the games on this list, some of them are quite intense that I've picked. This one was very much like so relaxing. Flying is made easy. You don't bump into anything. You can just press A and just soar across this like beautiful landscape. There's like flower meadows and swamps. There's no predators. Everyone's just like cute and getting along. But yeah, there's just this, I just like this new take on creature collection sims. And it takes an already cozy genre and just makes it even more like true to like ecology and like being a zoologist, and I just really like that approach. So yeah, my pick for number 5 is Flock, and I just had a really good time. It's very vibes. I picked it because it was relaxing vibes.
100% fair.
I'm really glad it's here.
Yes,
because
definitely.
You got so excited about it, and
I did.
I heard nothing but good things about it, but then I just feel like it just didn't stick in the way that maybe I expected it to.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those indies that it was like you know, like a lot of farming sims. It's like, oh, very, very relaxing, but you know, it's not going to be like, it's not going to punch your socks off. It's not going to be like, I was going to name it like a game that we probably going to talk about, like a breakout hit of the year. Yeah. It's very much a game that, very like it was very, it was very accurate to like what I enjoy in games. It hit all of those aspects. So yeah, I can see why not many talked about it. But again, it's like the same as like Wilmot's Warehouse and I Am Dead and Hokum. It's like these kind of like weird games that not many people have played, but they are just like, they have their own space. And Flock definitely fits in with that. So yeah, if you're after a very relaxing, laid back game, which also is good for kids, I do feel like this would make a great Christmas game or just like a game that you can play with a kid. Like I said, the flying is easy. It's really approachable. So yeah, it's just very family friendly. Unlike some other games. Oh God. Some of the mentally...
oh my goodness.
So yeah.
You talking about Supermarket Simulator?
With some of those mods. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not familiar. I can only imagine.
I mean, to be fair, there's only so much that you can mod like a bag of flour to be heroic.
Oh, because when you said like, oh, there's like some Sims where you can like deal drugs and like beat people up. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, I mean, I guess maybe that is available.
I was like, oh my god, it could be a front for like a drug den.
There already are just simulator games out there that do that, which is quite funny and quite weird. And like fair play. Yeah. They're filling a niche, but
I bought a brand new LG OLED in the Black Friday deals this weekend. We're recording this quite early, listeners. And Flock is going to be the first game I play on it.
That's going to look so nice.
Yes, it is. It's going to look really great.
I've got a little video playing in the background now, and I'm just like, being reminded once again that Flock was another game that just never quite made it. Although I didn't manage to secure our work copy, which is probably part of the reason why I didn't get around to it. But
yeah, enjoy it. It will look amazing. 4, number 4.
Oh,
yeah,
is it that time already?
We're going there. I know. Liam, why don't you tell us your number 4?
I will do so with pleasure. My number 4 is I Am Your Beast.
Motherfuckers wanna make a statement. Cigarette on forehead, face on pavement. Got a cell block in my basement. Exercising tyrants with the dawn that's breaking. Turn on lights cause the stage is set. Blood is warm and my face is wet. Hands are full with the lives I've wrecked. Painted with the slaughter that they won't forget, huh? There's a beast inside of me. Fucking let it out for me. There's a beast inside of me. The beast inside of me.
This will be interesting as well because like I know nothing about I Am Your Beast. Like I don't know how. I knew it came out, but I know Lex. I don't even know what genre it is.
It's a rare game that I have a relationship with, but didn't speak about on the podcast because I interviewed Xavier Nelson Jr., the developer, around the time I played it. So by the time we recorded an episode, I felt like I'd already sort of spoken about it. So I Am Your Beast is by Strange Scaffold, which is the indie developer that is helmed by Xavier Nelson Jr. This is a real heart pick for me. So as long-time listeners of the podcast will already know, especially my two co-hosts, my two long-suffering co-hosts, that I'm a huge fan of a particular genre of a game that I would refer to as maybe the frenetic violence shooter, if that even makes any sense.
Oh, no, it does.
It does, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
This genre began with Hotline Miami and Ape Out, and then it's since made the transition into the 3D realm with a bunch of first-person shooters that basically get the mechanics of that game, so insta-death and incredible acts of violence and weapons with limited uses. And we've had things like Mullet Mad Jack, Trepang 2, this year's Angerfoot. But the game that I think has done it better than any other is I Am Your Beast, the game that is number 4 on my list. So in I Am Your Beast, you play as Alphonse Harding, who's a retired special ops soldier who is asked by his old unit to do one last job. But Alphonse has already done too many one last jobs and snaps and turns against the agency that he was once employed by. So the game is about you trying to just have a little bit of peace. That's all the game is about, is you just want to not have to go back into the military-industrial machine. You regret all of the things that you've done, the places you've been, the people you've killed. But to do that, you have to rid your little forest, your little pocket of paradise from these soldiers that you know and that you trained with. So the whole game is just set in this like wintry woodland somewhere in the North American wilderness, and you're hunting down soldiers as this unstoppable killing machine. It's pulse-pounding, gory fun, basically. So each level is a tiny little kill box, and it'll give you an objective, either kill everyone or kill people with a certain weapon, or just try and escape through these little hatches that lead to underground tunnels that Alphonse uses to protect himself in this area that he calls home. And all weapons have limited ammo, so you might get 3 or 4 shots with a pistol, and then you can throw it, knock someone out and grab their weapon, and then quickly slide or run up a tree and jump down, and if you land on people's heads, you kill them like you're some kind of modern military Mario and they're squishy human Goombas. And there's like bear traps everywhere and beehives. And it also has like a bunch of like optional challenges. So when you finish a level, it'll unlock 3 additional challenges. I think that's right, or 1 or 2. And then you can just keep replaying that level. And it might be like, okay, do the objective, but also just get headshots or don't take any damage. And it's got loads of bonus levels as well. But the gameplay is like very similar to those other games I mentioned, especially like Angerfoot. But what really sets this apart is that in true Strange Scaffold style, the story is absolutely bloody incredible. So it's all told via typography. So in between each level, there is just text on the screen as 2 or 3 voice actors talk to each other. And you'll get typography on the screen, seeing what the characters are saying, and there'll be different coloured backgrounds. So the coloured backgrounds will either represent a character, like Alphonse, or it'll represent the tone or mood of someone. If Alphonse is bleeding out, for instance, there's a cutscene where the red is, you know, really vibrant and vile, and it's just incredible the way that it tells this story. It's such a mature story. It's the story of someone who's been capable of doing incredible violence, trying to just not be that person, but being forced to be that person. There's a subplot where he befriends one of the soldiers that's there to kill him, and that is like, I won't even lie, I shed a tear, even though it was communicated literally through text on the screen. And the main character is voiced, again, by Zalavea himself, the creator who voiced the main character in last year's El Paso Elsewhere. And once again, he does an absolutely incredible job. Everyone in this game, all the voice actors are absolutely superb. And there's an additional track by, I think he calls himself Lake Savage, which is his like musical name. So you know the music that was in El Paso?
Yes.
There's an extra track in this, which plays during a level. And also, it'll take you 2 hours to finish.
Right.
That's it.
Playing. I'm literally buying this game. You saw me on El Paso Elsewhere last year. I remember you spoke so passionately about that, and this is exactly the same. So I'm literally gonna. Did you say 2 hours? Around ish.
2 hours. 2 hours, and that's doing. I did some of the optional challenges. I didn't rush through the game. I had a relationship with it over those 2 hours. But it's one of those perfect indies that is just like, we're here to do one thing for a little bit. Enjoy.
Right.
And it's being patched, I think.
That.
It got some free DLC the other week, but I haven't played it yet.
I'm absolutely playing that over Christmas. Absolutely. Oh my God, that sounds incredible. See, I was with you because I know you like a shooty. I honestly get reminded of, what was it? Pratang? What was the one you said?
Trapang too.
Trapang. That was a flashback. But when you started talking about the story, oh my God. Because the same with El Paso Elsewhere, like, I don't normally play like those kind of games, but that story was so, when I was looking back at my top 5 from last year, I was like, that could have easily been in mine. But damn, oh my God, well, I have to play this one now. Well, there we go. Strange Scaffold. God damn. So he does some music, the voice acting. What the fuck? And you've talked to him on the podcast.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Fascinating
It's
conversation.
an amazing episode as well. Like if people
it
haven't
really
listened
is.
to that, I just go back and listen to it. It's such a good episode. And I can say that because I wasn't on it, so it's barely self-promotion. Just tell people to go and listen to that
thank
episode.
you.
Oh, that's a great pick. Oh, I love that.
It is.
Go on then, babes. You're next.
My go. Yeah, so in possibly the greatest case of mood whiplash of all time from my last pick. The next game that I want to talk about is a game called Two Falls, which has a subtitle which I'm about to butcher the pronunciation of, but I do want to try. But I would like to say that a lot of the Innu words in this game are only ever written on screen. And so I haven't got much of a steer on how to pronounce them from the game itself. But the subtitle of Two Falls is Nishu Takawachina, or Takawatsina. And this is a game that I first became aware of when we did Indie Cup Europe this summer.
Which you were hot on, but me and Liam were quite cool on.
Yes, yeah, definitely. This was kind of my darling from that.
Yes.
From that whole event that we were part of over the summer. I voted for it to go through to the final round, and it was my favourite of our category, although there were some real bangers, including the one that won. But yeah, this game is, I mean, the appeal to me is kind of obvious because it's got very Firewatch vibes and it's got very Life is Strange vibes. And so, like, the reason that I was kind of drawn to the presentation is pretty obvious. But in terms of story, it's not so much that it's different from things that I usually play as that it's different from things that are generally available. And so that was why it was so nice to see this game, which is basically you play as two characters alternating through chapters. You play as it's probably best to start with setting, actually. It's the 17th century sort of like French-Canadian settlement of the wilderness during that time. You play as a young woman called Jeanne, who has come from France as kind of basically she's been brought over to marry any settler she can find to negotiate with and to begin the European colonization of that part of the world. The other main character is a young man called Maikan, who is a person of Innu origins, so basically Native American, local to the area, whose way of life is being kind of slowly overturned by the arrival of white colonists, some of whom are a lot more violent and dogmatic about imposing their religion and their cultural standards on the native people than others. It's a pretty short game. I finished it in 5 hours. So it's really nice. It's kind of like, it doesn't outstay its welcome. And like, it's very story based. Basically, it's mostly walking sim with a little bit of that sort of like Telltale-esque decision making to like define the character's traits and get different dialogue. I've only played it once, but I don't imagine there's a lot of variation in the actual story. I think, as is often the case with these games, particularly with lower budgets, it's more a case of like your attitude changes and affects the way that people interact and react to things, but the overall story stays pretty much the same. I don't want to give away too much, really, because this is a sort of game that rides on its story. But I think the thing that impressed me most was I was never bored in those 5 hours. I think there's two ways to interact with it. There's to just rush through the story, in which case you might be bored, or there is to read the many codexes.
I was going to ask you about
that come up, which are basically the collectibles of the game. And first it will give you the in-story explanation of a thing, and then it'll later come back and give you the historical context for it, which is a really interesting way of telling the story and adding to the story. I just think it clearly achieved everything it set out to do within some quite tight budget constraints, in my opinion, which is always a really impressive thing to see. You know, it tells a quite realistic story, but from the point of view of people whose faith and cultural practices can frame the way that they understand the world quite strongly. It's very emotional. It was probably the game that gave me the most bit of a tear this year. And, it's there is a very sad moment quite near the end, but generally it's quite hopeful. I also think it's very timely, the conversation that it's trying to have, because it doesn't really reach a conclusion. It's almost like fighting against tropes in that sense, in that, you know, you have a male and a female lead. Is it going to become a love story? No, not really. It's more about the conversation between these two people from very different backgrounds. You have the suggestions that she's like seeing all these mysterious things moving through the forest, and he is seeing like this winter spirit that's, you know, freezing the land. But in neither case does it become a supernatural story. It's just these characters and the way they kind of, their fears and their context for understanding things frame the way that they understand the world, and it never becomes this huge, like, you know, it mostly is a very realistic story about cultural exchange and how you know, people interact with one another, and the fact that the sort of main theme, I'd say, of this game is that we're all on the same planet, and so some interaction is inevitable, and it's the way that we choose to approach one another that is the question, not whether we should or shouldn't try to interact, you know, with different cultures, even if, and another big theme of the game is there might not be a way to perfectly reconcile the way that we feel and the way that we believe. It's still worth trying to, you know, always striving to understand one another, which I think is just such a timely message.
Yeah.
It was also a very female-led production, which is nice to see, even though I did have one little criticism. There's only really one female character in the game, which is a bit of a shame because we never see any like Indigenous women in the game, which is a bit of a shame. But then there are only like 7 characters, so I kind of get like why, given the context. But yeah, I just thought it looks beautiful. It was a game that I definitely, even though there is a bit of an issue with lag on PC, hopefully the console release, which I think is going to be a great home for it, will fix some of those issues. But even then, it's probably the game I've screenshotted most this year, just because it is lovely to look at. It's very heartfelt, very relevant, well acted, even if the character models are a little bit stiff. Just so worth like 4 or 5 hours of your time if you want to learn about something that never gets talked about in video games, really.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's what I enjoyed most about it when we did it for Indie Cup, was that I knew nothing about this period of history, knew nothing about that culture, and so yeah, that's really great to hear. Does the dog die?
Oh, Rachel, how am I meant to? I told you I cried. I mean, it's like, I do think that's a fair warning.
Oh my god! I thought you're gonna be no. Oh my god!
It has certain elements of brutal realism to it. What can I say?
Oh.
It's a harsh. It's a game about harshness sometimes. And yeah, definitely there is a very, very sad part in it. Take that as you will.
Well, I'm really happy you enjoyed it, because the worst thing is when you play like a demo or something and then you play the full thing, you're like, oh. Yeah. But it sounds like you really connected with it, and I'm very happy with that.
I loved the characters, especially Mykan. He was just very likable as a character. I thought that he kind of had this the way that they were doing the languages, and they conveyed people sort of slowly learning to understand each other by having people slip into modern English more and more as they learn to interact. And like by the end, you've got people cracking jokes with each other and stuff, which I thought that's nice that they've introduced like humor into like a game that could be very, very deadpan and very serious.
Contains dog death.
Yeah, right. Oh man, if you hate that, you'll hate what's coming up later in the list.
Not more dog deaths.
Not more dog deaths. No. Oh no. I mean, if your absolute line is sad stuff happening to animals, the good news is that part's over now.
Yay!
Between Supermarket Simulator and Two Falls, you mean? There's
just terrible things happening to people from now on.
Oh, that's
sometimes not.
That's fine.
Sometimes not.
Oh my god! All right, Rachel, what's your number 4?
So my number 4 is The Rise of the Golden Idol. The Rise of the Golden Idol is the sequel to The Case of the Golden Idol, one of the best detective games of the last decade. It's generally one step behind Obra Dinn. I'm pretty sure majority of you agree with that. The Color Grey Games had expectations to meet. They had made a fantastic mystery game with a very novel fill-in-the-blank puzzle-solving element, and okay, they were doing a sequel. Good luck topping that. Guess what they did? Spoiler alert. It is very, very good. Everything that, the way I've been describing this game is it's The Case of the Golden Idol, but better. Like, that's the TLDR of it. Everything you love about The Case of the Golden Idol, the cases, the fill-in-the-blanks, this theming of, like, greed and power struggles and bad men doing evil things for this object of power is still all here, but the difference is that we're now in the 1970s. The idol has now passed along through different generations of people. And now, we're seeing its effect in the 1970s and what new group of people are trying to use it for their evil whims. So theming aside, the puzzles are just really good. They are more in depth. There's more twists and turns. What I really like about this case is that you really have to look at a scene in terms of visually to kind of understand what's going on. For those who aren't aware, each case is kind of like made up of vignettes of like frozen images, and essentially you are plucking words out of the environment. You then have to fill in the blank paragraphs of who done it and why. Sometimes they can be as simple as this person was murdered by this person. Other times there's going to be other elements to it. Maybe you need to work out who was sitting where at a table, a dinner table, or the timetable of where a person was at what time. So this is still very much here, but in more bonkers creative ways. There's a really interesting auction case about where you have to kind of like work out who was bidding on what and how much money they had and where and why they were bidding on stuff. Again, there's like more shocking scenes. If like with the case of the Golden Idol, the one that I'll always remember is the man who's like on fire. Like that is what I remember for the first game. Yeah. This game has the same shocking moments. Even the first tutorial case is just such a gut punch of like what's happening. And also because the visuals are now they're slightly moving, they're not so static, you feel like you're like in a moment instead of like in a frozen time, a moment in time. So it's like stuff is still kind of unfolding and happening, and so you just feel a bit more pulled into this like very grisly world. And yeah, the UI is a lot better. This time you can move your paragraph windows around. There's an option to move between thinking and exploring. That's not you clicking, you can press spacebar. Lots of very handy UI changes. But yeah, ultimately, this is just a very, very good detective puzzle game. They've done it again. It's just really good. I think where it's probably not higher on my list in that I think the first one was so set with like its colonial messaging. I really enjoyed that. This one, because it's in the 70s, it's going for a slightly different angle. We're looking at like kind of the introduction of drugs and psychedelics and hypnosis and other elements, which I like, but it just doesn't, it's not as impactful like messaging on society than maybe the first one. It definitely has its own, it's saying its own, it definitely has messages and themes, but I just liked the punch of the first one. But yeah, if you like Case of the Golden Idol, you should play Rise of the Golden Idol. If you've not played Case of the Golden Idol, apparently you don't need to have played this one. And I agree with that. I think you probably could play this game without playing the first one, but you should play both. Like you absolutely should. Like why would you not? So yeah, that is why it is my number 4. It's just a very good game. I really enjoyed it. The last case though, my God, 20 cases by the way, each will take you around 30 minutes to half an hour. 30 minutes to an hour. The last one took me so long. It was really intense and super good. And I was like galaxy brain energy. It was great. It was honestly so cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed that last case. So yeah, Rise of the Golden Idol, very good.
I can't wait to play this. I think I might play it over Christmas. My only question for you is, does my boy Little Pip make a return in this one?
Okay, so I also wanted to know if the demon child Little Pip was in this one, and they are not. So you are safe. You can play.
Cowards.
Oh, I thought you were like, I don't want to see that little shit ever again. But
I mean, I don't. But it's a bit like a bad smell, right? Like sometimes you got to have a second sniff. You know what I mean? Like, that's what Little Pip is for.
I'm sorry, a sniff of Little Pip. No. So the demon child is not, but there are other equally cursed moments.
Excellent.
But I mean, Little Pip is honestly on another level, though. So yeah, maybe they should have thought about maybe a DLC. There's DLC coming out. So maybe
DLC.
Little Pip
Spin-off,
DLC.
I want to shout out just the fact that the art style is still horrific, but is significantly less cursed, in my opinion, this time around. Like, I struggle with Case of the Golden Idol. I have had trouble getting into it because of the fact that I find it so off-putting to look at. Like, I know it's on purpose. I know it's doing what it's meant to do, but like, it's just. This one is a little bit more like I can bear to look at it while still thinking that it's
more
grotesque.
painterly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting because when I interviewed them, they briefly chatted about how hard this game was to pitch to publishers because it was so ugly. Yeah, they were like, we're not changing the art style. The art style is doing, but like publishers would look at it and be like, no, you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not quite as bad as that Junji Ito game, which I physically can't play. I can't. look at it.
World of Horror.
Yes, I can't actually like look at that on a screen. It's not quite that bad, but it's pretty bad.
The UI is a nightmare on that. As in like there's so much going on. Oh, it just gives me a headache. But can you not look at it as like for you it's like horrible, or is it the pixel
The Junji Ito one, I literally couldn't play it because it would make my head feel so swimmy and bad.
Yeah.
With Golden Idol, it was more just like, I was like, I am uncomfortable the entire time I'm looking at this screen.
Little Pip. Oh, and he's wearing like that cute little outfit as well, and it's just horrific. My God.
Yeah.
Forget about that guy on fire.
Should have put a little Pip on fire.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God. Now we're on tier 3. So we're getting to the midpoint.
We really are.
We are. Well, we're on tier 3, but my pick for number 3 is higher on Rebecca's list. So I will defer to Rebecca for her number 3 and we'll come back to mine later on.
Yes. Back around to this one. But for me, continuing, I've realised actually as we've been talking, it's occurred to me that I've ordered my list in just the most incredibly mood whiplash way possible, because now we're back. Now we're back to the joy of Little Kitty Big City, a genuinely sweet and not at all cursed game that I really enjoyed playing this year. This one stood out to me, right? It was one that I picked up, obviously, when it came out, very kindly got a code from Double Dagger Studio. Just started playing it, kind of like played it for a couple of hours, went and did some other stuff, came back, finished the rest of the story like a couple of months later. Wasn't really thinking about it much at the time as I was playing it. I was just enjoying it, right? But then I realized that kind of speaks for itself in a lot of ways, especially because like my relationship with this game was one that I have put on my anticipated list for the last 3 years.
Yes, you had.
So to see it come out finally and to just play it and enjoy it and feel like, again, much as I said with Two Falls, they're for very different reasons, I think it achieves everything that it sets out to do in a really neat way. I just think that it's like, so this is a sort of small open world exploration sandbox where you play as a small cat who has fallen like by increments, so it's not too distressing, from a high like balcony in the apartment building where it lives, and is trying to find a way to get back home, but is getting very distracted in cat-like way by, you know, hijinks along the way. It's a mayhem simulator essentially in the vein of Untitled Goose Game, which is one of my favorite indies. It's just really cute. It's got cute side activities, but it feels good to play. It looks good. It's very like, you know, the smooth animation and the way you feel controlling the character all feels really good. There's so many weird little things you can do. It's got this very like, the way of interacting with the city and with the humans in the city as well. It all just feels nice. It is the game that was promised all those years ago. Like, so I wanted to like mention, because this spot could almost have gone to a couple of other games that I had anticipated in the same way. This is the one mostly where I think I would have like talked potentially a little bit about Phoenix Springs or about the Crush House. But of the sort of 3 that I've played that I was really looking forward to, from the like beginning of the year or from when I heard them announced, I think this is the one that landed the best for me, and so it's the one that I most wanted to highlight. It feels more you. It does, yeah. I mean, like, Phoenix Springs was a really tough one for, like, do I put it on the list, because I did really enjoy it as well. But I was like, as I say, this one was just, it kind of rolled off me at the time, but I keep looking back on it, like, I could just drop back in. You know, I've got optional objectives still to do. I just enjoyed it. It just makes you feel nice. And sometimes things don't have to be deeper than that, she says, in like stark opposition to her last pick and her next pick. So, like,
it's just such a cozy game. Yeah, and it's so cute. It's just good vibes.
Exactly.
The cat is so cute. I have 2 black cats, and I'm always just like, I always go, little kitty, big city. Little kitty, when I follow them around the house, I'm like, little kitty, big city.
That's really sweet.
But you're right. It's very much in that genre of like, cute animal does cheeky things and we all clap because it's adorable.
Yes. Yeah. Those games are all about the execution, right? It's just, you can make any concept work if you understand the animal and the environment and can make them interact in a really satisfying way, and this game just does that.
For you, because you're obviously a big Stray fan, where does it sit there with you?
Okay, I was actually thinking about this earlier. So I think Stray left more of an impression as I was playing it, but this has maybe had more of a, if you'll pardon the pun, more of a tail to my feelings towards like Stray. I felt really intensely towards it while I was playing it, right? I was like so emotionally invested, but like a month or two after I finished playing it, I kind of didn't think about it very much anymore. Whereas this, I almost barely thought about it when I was playing it, but I often just like go, that was a really nice experience.
Oh,
you know, just look back on it and go, yeah, it looks nice. It was nice to play. It'd be nice to dip back into occasionally. It's one of those where if I see like a streamer that I like is playing it, I'll definitely drop in and just watch it just to get the, little kick of nostalgia from it already. So yeah, it's like very different, kind of equal, I would say. Probably Stray is the better game, but I think this is the one I would almost recommend more, if that makes sense.
I think the cats would be friends. I think the cat from Stray and the cat from Little Kitty Big City would be friends.
That's so cute. That's my fan fiction now. Thank you.
I think they would be besties. And like cats normally, when they're very territorial and they hiss and growl at each other. These two would be
genuinely. I would love a ginger cat and a black cat. That would be like my dream. Because you'd have the beautiful ginger idiot and then the black cat that's always plotting the end of the world but is also a beautiful idiot.
Yes.
They are the perfect pairing. If the cat from Stray and the cat from Little Kitty were friends, I would spook them by running in, grabbing that little robot from the backpack of the stray cat's back and then crushing it under my heel for ruining that game.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you did not like the backpack gun. Was it?
Did
Was
not
it
like
the
that
gun?
game. No. Yep.
The gun part was annoying, I agree, but I cried at the end of Stray as well, so...
Well, you might not want to play Little Kitty Big City because they do give that cat a machine gun, like, halfway through, so that was very much I was like, wow.
You can threaten people with a
Bold
knife.
swing.
You can threaten people with a knife.
You can. There's a knife.
Okay,
Cut about as the little cat.
I do think this is the game I wanted Stray to be, though, to be fair, so I am looking forward to
That's
playing
fair.
this.
There's also, finally, allegedly next year, a game called Peace Island, which I've been waiting for even longer than Little Kitty Big City, is apparently coming out, which is the final, the rounding out of the trilogy of cat-themed games I've been excited for years. So,
oh my God.
They've given it a really specific release date in like November 2025. And I'm like, oh, all right, fair play to you. We'll see what happens. But yeah.
Bold. Very bold.
Could be an interesting
bold.
end to next year. I can't believe that I'm even thinking about November of next year. Right?
Oh God.
We're here before we know it.
Oh, don't. Shush.
And on that note, Rachel, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Animal Well. So yeah, the big one, this is my big one because it was very close between Animal Well and Ultros. Ultros is a game I played earlier in this year and really just fell in love with it. It was on my list for the longest time. It just has this really interesting, like, psychedelic take on Metroidvanias, and not just in a visual sense. I'm talking like the themes, like the idea of like looping, ego death, like a balance with nature, and I just thought the themes went really well with Metroidvania and its idea of gardening. I love gardening in games, so for the longest time, Ultros was my Metroidvania pick. But I've just been thinking about Animal Well recently, and I love Ultros. I'm in love with Ultros. Animal Well is like an enigma for me. Like, it's just something that I like have just put a lot of time and thought like into, sometimes frustrating, but in like a good puzzle way. So like Animal Well is basically a Metroidvania where you play as a little blob guy who is exploring this kind of like underground cavern system where there's like rooms with like strange platforming, puzzle machines. There are like weird like animal spirits and animals in general that are just very hostile towards you. Like, if this was an ecosystem food chain, you are at the very bottom. You are very small, these animals are very big, and so there's this aspect of like puzzle but survival. And yeah, on the surface, it is that is all it is. But as you kind of play more of the game, there's definitely like stuff going on. There's like symbols on the wall that, I wonder when that will come into play. There's like secrets and locked doors, and suddenly you're just like, oh, okay, there's more things happening. So you play through the game, hit credits, and suddenly, is that potentially the end of the game? Oh, no. No. That is only the first ending out of what developer Billy Basso has called the many layers of Animal Well. And, when he was talking about this kind of stuff, I very much was like, okay, girl, like, love you. I think you're great, but also like, okay, how deep are we? Like, what are we talking about here? But genuinely, like, he was legit. Animal Well has so many different layers to it in terms of like completionist dream, finding these like secrets and ultimately dismantling this game until you've reached like at least 3 or 4 different endings. Like, I'm not going to complete those 3 or 4 endings. I've played as much of it as I'd wanted to. But if you're someone who really enjoyed like Fez's monolith rooms or playing Tunic to utter completion, like solving its secret language and everything, like Animal Well, you'll love it. You will absolutely, it's a game that just like it demands to be poked and prodded and explored to like code, like searching through the game's code levels of like secrets and hidden God knows what else. Like, Billy has also said that there are like a part of this game is that one of the levels takes community participation. You need to actively find other players and communicate with them for hidden symbols. There's another part where, don't know if this is true, but apparently there's puzzles in it that will take literal years to solve, so that's fun. Wow. And that's all great, but like, this is just a very solid Metroidvania and probably the best of the year. Sorry, Ultros, love you, Ultros, but like, I just think Animal Well, it takes the Metroidvania, but it almost like headlocks the genre and makes it its own. And I'm just like, oh my God. I was just really impressed. I was really impressed with how much depth this game had. And yeah, be careful if you're a completionist or someone who likes to, Rebecca, I can't imagine if you were set as guides for this game. I honestly, every guides writer, I prayed for them. I was like, if I was a guides writer on Animal, because as I was playing it, I was like, oh my God, like if I had to like in any way do any sort of guide work, I don't know what I would do. But yeah, it's a wonderful game. I really enjoyed playing it. And yeah, I think I'll be thinking about it for quite a while. And those unsolved puzzles will remain unsolved. But maybe one day I'll go back or not. I don't know. It's
an intimidating thing. That's why I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
It's hearing you talk about it. It didn't put me off, but made me realize, okay, I can't half-ass this. Like, I need to sit down and play this game. And I haven't found time of it yet. But it's been a treat to hear you talk about it the few times that you have this year, because obviously me and you played it back at PAX, and
we did, yeah.
We sort of saw it in that early form. But it's definitely one of the breakout games of the year. I think it's part of the story of 2024 when it comes to indies, and I'm really happy that it's here on this list.
I remember when we played. I remember when we saw it the first time, and spellbound utterly. I was like, "This is the best game I've played at this event, apart from Pacific Drive, which I didn't play." Oh, actually, another one. Did we talk about that last episode? That's not on any of our lists, which is really surprising.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild.
But yeah, that was like, I knew after playing that little snippet, the 5-minute cap they gave us, I was like, this is something really special. And like, do I want to say this? There's a part of me that's like the whole donkey thing of him being like, yeah, my indie studio, we only select good games and good indie games, and like I have an authoritative voice on like what is good or not. And actually he picked like a really fucking solid indie game, so everything he said was basically true. And I'm just like, anyway, apart from that, well done, Billy. This is an absolute triumph of a game. And yeah. Okay, Donkey.
Come on the podcast, Donkey, if you're not afraid of me still, when you ran away from me at PAX. But
oh, God.
Calling you out, Jason.
Is this going in?
Yeah. Come on. He's not listening. He's too busy earning a lot of money off YouTube.
Yeah.
But if he does, if anyone has a direct line to donkey, get him on the pod.
I just sometimes worry that we're getting a little bit too complacent. Like, no, nobody listens to this, and then it's like, oh, actually, people do.
Yeah, people do.
He's in the Discord under a pseudonym.
Oh, no.
Right. Oh my god. Next level, guys. Oh, it's like Animal Well. Level 2.
Oh my god. We're on level 2.
We're on level 2. We're almost getting to the end. So
we
back
really
to you, Liam, with your level 2 pick.
My level 2 pick, number 2 on my list, is Crow Country.
Yes! I'm so happy you chose this one. I knew you would. Absolutely.
I mean, I had to.
You had
right?
to.
Sicklesmeme.jpg. This is my hole. It was made for me. Like, this is such a Liam-ass video game. So, Crow Country is by SFB Games. You may know them for previous games such as Snipperclips and Tangle Tower, but this is a classic PlayStation 1 styled survival horror that is very closely modelled after the original Resident Evil. Ha ha ha. It may be the year of Rebecca, but Liam gets a scrap or two in between remasters of Tomb Raider Angels of Darkness. So this is about a young woman called Mara Forrest who travels to an abandoned theme park to hunt for Edward Crow, who's the owner of a theme park called Crow Country and has been missing for 2 years. And in this rundown, grotty theme park are a bunch of dribbly, rotting corpses that haunt the park's various themed areas, and it's your job to try and figure out what happened here, find Edward Crow, and ultimately survive from the various nasties that crawl around this mist-covered theme park. So it is a very classic Resident Evil style survival horror. It's got a bunch of puzzles, lots of keys, lots of weird ways to get through strange doors. You have a very basic shooting mechanic to try and deal with the horrible dribbly monsters, but those weapons have limited ammo. And it just really nails the vibe of those original Resident Evil games, which as a huge Resident Evil fan was very, very appealing to me. But what really elevates Crow Country, well, there's two things that elevate it to what I think are masterful standards, is first of all, it has some great modern touches. So the whole game is rendered in full 3D, even though it looks pre-rendered. So it looks like Final Fantasy games more than Resident Evil. But the trick of being able to replicate that style in full 3D is marvelous. And it's a wonder that no one's ever done it before SFB. It feels like a real easy win, but it's masterfully done. And it also has like a fully movable camera, so it doesn't have fixed camera angles like the original Resident Evils. You can spin that camera around, even though it's at an elevated angle. You can poke around things and see things in corners and look behind things, which is nice. But what really cemented this game in my mind as one of the best of the year is that I've played a lot of games that have tried to replicate the original Resident Evil, including Resident Evil games over the years. But this is maybe one of the first that's fully understood what made that first game so special. And that's, at a certain point, you will not be afraid of the game anymore. It only has a limited number of ways of scaring the player. And at some point, Capcom realized that those original Resident Evil games become less about survival and more about mastery. It's about how can I move through the space efficiently? How can I use as limited resources as possible? How can I solve puzzles or do them as fast as possible and just understand these systems intimately? And it's wonderful. It really understands that. It has a real great looping world design. It has a bunch of like new weapons and tasty secrets to unlock if you try and finish it really fast or you try and like finish all the puzzles. And it's just wonderful. And it just has it's set in 1990 and it's just fully aware of the era that it takes place in, and not just in terms of like technology or vibes. It understands like culturally what a game in the 90s should feel like. So the cast of characters are great. It sort of feels like Scream in a lot of ways. You've sort of got like this spunky main character, and you've got like this nice cop who's well-meaning but a bit useless, and like the daughter of the theme park owner. And it's really, really great. And I finished this twice back to back. Like I just finished it and went straight back through again. I sort of like guided it. I think I mentioned this on the podcast. I finished it once and then I wanted to finish it again to see how fast I could do it. So I played through it again and noted down all the puzzle solutions so then I could do it again for a third time and rush through it. Which, like, I don't know what came over me, but it's just the perfect length to experience multiple times. But yeah, I love this game. It's stuck with me all year and it just feels like something I'll keep coming back to. And I'm just desperate for them to make a sequel already. I think there's enough juice in the orange to keep squeezing. But yeah,
incredible,
brilliant thing.
Mermaid Mask first, and then SBF. Then you can do Crow Country Troop 2. But
one for Rachel, one for Liam.
Yeah, we'll
that's
go
what
back and
SFP
forth.
need to do moving forward. Yeah.
I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that the last 3 games we've talked about were all released on May 9th, Indiepocalypse Day.
Jesus God.
God.
What a day. That's just...
What a great observation, wild. Rebecca, as well. That is actually so funny. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, well done. I did not pick up on that.
God.
So I've been keeping the Steam pages open so I can check details and stuff. And one of the nice impacts of that is that it's like having a video on where you guys talk over the footage because I've got it muted, but just the gameplay loops running. It's really nice.
I do that all the time.
It's a very nice experience.
Yeah.
It's genuinely lovely. It's like taking us back to the days when we would do extremely sleep deprived Summer Games Fest roundup videos.
Yes. I'm also a Crow Country lover. I played this on exploration mode because tank controls just absolutely blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, and like stopping to aim and then fire, also something that I was just like, what? Oh my god. So as someone who can get to grips with those quite as well as I wanted to, exploration mode, absolutely amazing. The puzzles still there to be solved. It's just that you have infinite ammo, and I think there's less creepy humanoid. Oh God, the way you describe them as dribbling is so... Oh God. They are like wet. They're so disgusting.
Oh, they are.
Oh, but yeah, it's such a good game. And I'll always remember that the hole with like the moaning coming out of it. Jesus. This is a creepy game. This is a really like creepy game. It will get under your skin. It's like chills.
Absolutely.
And the whole thing with the theme park and like what happened and why these things are there. Yeah. Oh,
it's like super Silent Hill as well from all of that as well. The theme park like setting and the idea of like moaning noises coming off screen. It's got a very like all of that great classic survival horror from the 90s.
Oh.
Yeah, the theme park is such a great setting because it allows it to sort of pull in influences. And I think the fact that it's British is maybe part of this, but it gets to pull in that sort of like, this ain't Disneyland, this ain't even Alton Towers.
Yes.
This is like, you know, it's like Lightwater Valley up north. Like, this is the kind of theme park your parents take you to, and like the theming is really off.
Yes.
And it just like has like super sinister vibes.
Oh my God, yes.
It's brilliant.
Yep.
Such a good pick. Go on then, Rebecca, back to you, babes.
Oh my God, we're onto second place now, aren't we?
I know.
We are.
Oh wow. So my second place pick, and we're really into the I will defend this with my life territory all of a sudden now. My second place pick is mouthwashing. Music. I can't remember what the music's like in this game. I seem to recall it's probably weird because everything
awful
in this game is. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I can't wait to listen to that.
So this is a game by Wrong Organ. It's a game that I was not aware of until after it came out even, and when I did become aware of it at first, I really didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I kind of only checked it out because, again, it was getting quite big with, I watch a couple of sort of horror streamers, specialists, and one of them was playing it. And I thought, based on everything that I knew about it, people were like, it's real body horror. And that was kind of all I knew. And I don't really like body horror. It's the one horror thing I'm not really into. So I was like, I'm going to watch 20 minutes and I'm going to dismiss this game from my life forever. Later, after finishing the game in a single sitting and being like forever changed.
Sorry, tickled me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like it's just I probably comes across in just the general way I am. I love it when my expectations get subverted, which is probably one of the reasons why this game has stuck with me so much. Is that people said body horror, and I really thought it was going to be quite a simple, weird puzzle, maybe-esque, quite surreal game. It's actually incredibly grounded in character study, which is one of the things that I was really surprised by and really enjoyed. Rachel and I have talked about this on the podcast a little bit before, but basically it's about 5 crew members of a cargo freighter spaceship who have become stranded on an asteroid after like a very, very catastrophic crash that left one of them really, really badly injured. There's basically very little hope for escape. And so a lot of what they're navigating really is more how they're going to try and survive for long enough just in the hopes that they'll get rescued, but they really don't have any way to ensure that can happen. And yeah, it is very reminiscent of the sort of very classic sci-fi film where it will be like the I don't want to say Alien and Isolation together on a gaming podcast because I feel like it'll get us tagged in something that we're really not talking about, but like it's got that feeling of like Alien and Isolation. But it is it's got some incredible character study moments in it. The start of the game, you feel like you've got a sense of who everyone on the crew is in terms of the sort of roles that they play and the tropes that they fulfill. And by the end of the game, almost every sympathy that you have had has been upended multiple times. It is absolutely horrific, both from a gore point of view and a psychological point of view. It also, and I say this every time I talk about this game because I was so blown away by it, there is one monologue near the end that Rachel's nodding because she knows exactly the one. Yeah. Everyone who's seen this game and played it knows exactly the one I mean. Just completely upends so many expectations and ways of thinking about so many things. I want people to experience it and I don't want to spoil it, but I do want people to know. I was sat there like, this is the best bit of game writing that I have seen all year, and I still think that that's absolutely the case. And I was not expecting it in this weird sort of like PS1 era retro styled indie horror about cannibalism, you know? And like,
yeah.
Oh, it really does grab you. There are a couple of moments. I don't think it's perfect all the way through. There's one section that I think goes on a bit too long. There's one theme that I think is hammered home a bit unnecessarily strongly given everything else that's going on. But generally, I just think it's so short. It's like 3-4 hours. It's basically like watching a movie for the most part, but it's, a very interactive and very, very gripping experience. And if it can get someone who does not like a particular subgenre to be so like passionate about it that I'm like, even though it's gross, even though it's creepy and uncomfortable, like you should totally play it and have your mind changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good. It's so good. And I still want to talk about the bit, but I don't want to give it away. It's the problem with liking very story-rich games.
Yeah, I think when I first heard about mouthwashing as well when it came out, and people were just talking about it, and I think I made a lot of assumptions based on how it looked and who was playing it and whatever, and just thought I'm going to play it because it's popular, and was absolutely blown away. And I think what I like about it as well is that it's quite it is grisly, but it's quite, the imagery is very evocative and meaningful.
It's never gratuitous.
And everything you see has meaning, and that meaning can be interpreted in a number of different ways. So it's quite artful in that kind of way.
Oh, I definitely agree.
Yeah, there's like a lot of moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is like psychological, this is like traumatic, this is someone processing grief, blame. They're all these characters are like feeling a sense of responsibility and trying to, come to terms with their own mortality. And it's kind of beautiful in some ways, if horrific.
The idea, I think personal responsibility is the biggest theme of the game, and the way that's drawn out is just so cleverly done. Yeah. And also I think it's a great testament that by the time you get to the big, like not really spoilers because it's the marketing cannibalism set piece, that is a horrific scene, but it's not, it justifies itself completely in the way that it's done. You can't really argue with the, as you say, the artistic choice they've made to show what they show in the way that they do.
Yeah, because also like the idea of like consuming someone, it's not so literal in the sense of, you know, they're all starving and
exactly.
Yeah, so there's like a lot more interpretation, which is very thoughtful. I just thought it was a very thoughtful like game.
By the time you get to that scene, you understand that character has already been fully consumed. That's the thing. Without wanting to give spoilers, is that like that is just the final indignity of someone who has already been completely destroyed. And like getting there is this is not a cheerful game. This is what I mean. This is like a real harrowing experience, but it really, if you're going to play one harrowing horror game, let this be the one. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish you both all the best with this one. I'm never playing this shit.
It's heavy going.
If we ever do like the episode we have to give each other a game to play, we'll give you mouthwash. Mouthwashing.
Great. Is that when I'm reading House of Leaves as well? Please don't. I'm just a little guy.
Both. That's your, in 1 week you must.
Oh, Liam's different. Something happened to Liam this year.
Oh God, a husk of a human.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, wild. Oh, let's go with something more cheerful, hopefully.
Well, you mentioned House of Leaves. I guess, you know, that is lovely. Quite a, in terms of what that book was trying to achieve as an object and, you know, as a piece of fiction, my pick for second kind of relates to that. And it is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. Stylish neo-noir, I don't know, saxophone.
I mean, the music that comes to my mind is on the May episode where you went, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the main theme.
Which is like the complete opposite of the vibe of
I can only imagine. I shouldn't be allowed to sing on this podcast after last episode, so please continue.
You don't understand how much I go around the house singing that song. Santa Claus has made you a quiz. Santa Claus. I can't wait till the full episode comes out so I can hear the rest of your lyrics, because like honestly it's been like my vocal stim for so long. Santa Claus has made you a quiz. I just love it so much.
It's about time I repaid you, because you've given me so many vocal stims over the course of recording podcasts together. So literally the other day, Yoli and I said, please, to each other. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry for derailing you so hard. Please continue.
Because, yes. Okay, serious time, because this is very serious artsy game. So this is another puzzle game on my list. What is this, the third one? It's just been a really great year for puzzle games. So yeah, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. Wow. Where do I begin? So you play as a woman who's unnamed, and you are invited to a hotel. A mysterious person has sent you a letter saying, come to the hotel. You arrive at the hotel, and then you just start to explore it. There's lots of locked doors. It's weird. It's kind of cool, like black and white noir. She's wearing like cool shades and like a suit. And you're just exploring this like weird building that's like that has impossible architecture. All these like endless rooms with locked doors. And slowly and surely, as you make your way through the house and solve its puzzles and find clues, unlock these doors, the house kind of begins to unravel, and in that sense as well, the story begins to kind of like unfold as well. And there's just endless kind of puzzle design work going on here. There are maths puzzles, there are perspective puzzles, riddles. One we have to decipher the zodiac signs. There's one where you need to know the exact moon phases on one day in like in the 1890s. Like, it's so obscure, this like information you're like consuming and gathering and hoarding, but it does all have its place. It's just about when you get there and how you get there, because this game can be played like depending on your puzzle solving and where you explore. You can access things at certain times and know of certain story events. But the reason why this game is so good is that I've definitely spoken about this before. Its story and its puzzles are so tightly interwoven. I honestly don't know where some of the story and puzzles began and ended. Like, in a lot of puzzle games, you have do the puzzle and then do the story. Professor Layton's like, solve this puzzle, Luke, and then suddenly you're being chased by a Ferris wheel and you're going to get crushed to death. Like, it's very much they're separated. And in Lorelei, they are not. They are almost one. And it's so weird and wonderful and compelling because you can find out like a story element, and then suddenly in a puzzle, it will ask you about a number and then the date you've known from this event. Oh, that's part of the puzzle. And it's not just dates, it's characters, it's like occupations of certain characters, events. Like, it's just honestly really incredible how closely these two elements are one. And the result is just this genuinely great game, like this powerhouse of puzzle solving, of narrative, of like, this, honestly, I'm calling this a contemporary puzzle game. This is unlike anything else I've played. It's its own thing. It does things I've not seen anywhere else before. It's just really great. And as soon as I played it, me and friend of the podcast, Henry, played it together. It's the perfect game to play with someone else who, a second pair of eyes to like kind of as your backup for going in. Do you know what it is? This is what I felt with Obra Dinn. When I finished it, I felt genuinely gutted that I would never play this game for the first time again. And like, I don't get that a lot, but people talk about it, and I was like, I'm genuinely gutted because, like, I don't know. I honestly, it's like grief. I'm grieving because this game was so
post-game blues.
Yeah, it was
real.
very post-game blues.
So real.
If you like stories about dreams, illusions, magicians, art exhibitions, what's real, what isn't, fiction, reality, like this game is all of that. It's just so good. It's like a haunted house and a puzzle box in one. And yeah, it's amazing. It's if this would be my number one, if it wasn't that my number one was so fucking good. Any other year this would have been my number one, but we'll get to our number ones late in a bit. So very shortly. So yeah, that's Lorelei. Oh, goddamn.
I can't wait to play this. I'm going to savor the shit out of this game because I'm just like you. Ever since playing Obra Dinn, part of me's been like, maybe that was it. Maybe that was the game. But this, I'm glad that it's sort of like seemingly kicked off an entirely new generation of puzzle people who are just like, I guess we can do really complicated puzzle games and there's an audience for it and a market for it. So yeah, very excited to try this out.
In thinking that this is one we've all chosen to play with our partners as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because the reason I haven't played it yet is because friend of the podcast Mick and I are desperately trying to schedule in some time because we know that we want to play this together, and it's just like it's been busy. But I'm like, this is so like the thing we're going to try and find time to play together soon, and it's
Normally I go at these alone, but because I was on review, I needed my backup in case I got stuck on a puzzle.
Yeah, that's totally real.
That makes sense.
So I had a week to play this 20-hour game. And so, me and Henry played it for 3 days straight, like beginning of the start of the day to the end of the day. And yeah, it's just really great having someone else be there because it's just like, oh yeah, I hope I haven't bigged it up too much. It's just how much that I really love this game. So maybe temper expectations, but also maybe not too much. It's pretty good. I don't know.
You've not let me down yet, Rachel. So no pressure. From what we did start this, and we're not very far through. But so far, I'm like, okay, I see it. I see what's they're cooking. So
yeah. It's time.
Ooh.
It's time for our personal number one picks. Ooh,
we've reached it.
We've done
These are the games that Indieventure has deemed to be the greatest of 2024.
Yes.
And I have the pleasure of kicking off a game that I will not be speaking about alone.
Yes.
Because Hecky Olmo, Sister Blue.
Hair to hair.
It's time to talk about 1000 Times Resist.
Mother loves you and cares for all your sisters. She has powers and wisdom beyond imagine. If there's danger, she surely has prepared us. I dreamed we sisters were the stars up in the sky, all gently tethered to a brilliant sun for life. The All-Mother, she shines so bright, but mothers...
Fuck yeah!
I feel like to close the loop on this game, you need to kick off this conversation, Rachel, because
Really?
I have a feeling that I'm not the only person who has this at number one.
Yeah, this is both our number ones for sure. I know when I played it, I was like, this and Lorelei are fighting for first place.
Yeah.
But this is just absolutely stuck with me in ways that like Lorelei could never even touch. Like it's such a important game. And I don't use that term lightly. Like, it really is an absolutely stunning, like, piece of storytelling. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to kind of give an overview and then you jump in?
By all means, yeah, absolutely.
So, oh God, right. 1000 Times Resist takes place in the distant future where you play as a watcher, one of hundreds of clones of a being called the All-Mother, who's like this matriarchal figurehead, who survived the extinction of humanity. Essentially, many moons ago, Earth was visited by these giant beings called the Occupants, and upon their arrival, they brought a sickness with them that spread throughout humans and essentially just wiped them all out. Apart from one who back then was called Iris, a teenager, who now, many years later and many generations of clones later, is known as the All-Mother. And playing as Watcher, your role in this society is to dip into the memories of All-Mother and to preserve her history. Back when she was a teenager, when the outbreak first began, as she was growing up with her family, what happened when the sickness broke out, and just her history, almost up into the point where she takes on the godlike figure of All-Mother. And as Watcher dips into these memories, not everything is as it seems, and a history of just very complex themes starts to unfold, and it's amazing. It's an absolutely triumphant piece of storytelling. I honestly can't believe the number of themes it tackles as a debut game by Sunset Visitor. That is wild. I cannot believe it. So yeah, God, you go next, babes. You dip in. Oh,
We'll relay race this one maybe.
Yeah.
This is the boldest, most complex, most refined narrative game I think I've played in literal years. It knows exactly how much it wants to talk about and the exact themes it wants to discuss. It covers COVID. It covers the Hong Kong riots of 2019. It covers it's the best game about generational trauma I've ever played.
Yep.
Without a doubt. And the way that it uses sci-fi to frame these events, to contextualize them, to comment on them is stunning. And one thing that really struck me is that this game is basically 15 hours of two characters looking at each other with no animation.
Yes.
Like they're 3D models, but there's no lip movements. There's maybe 3 cutscenes in the game. There's very little in terms of like animated sequences, and yet it doesn't matter because the voice acting is stunning. The pace of the narrative is wonderful. It gives it's not a messy game, even though it's very dense. It gives so much space to each of its themes, in that you might get one chapter that really focuses on one particular flashback. And that's one of the benefits of being a watcher, is that you get to revisit the memories of Iris, the All-Mother, but you also see the memories of the All-Mother's mother and the All-Mother's mother's mother. And it just keeps building and building and building and building. And then you keep thinking, right, okay, well, that's the end. And it goes, nope, building, building, building. Oh, this is the end. Nope, building, building, building. Is this the end? Let's have another hour. And it sort of simultaneously feels like it could have been, I think I said this to you, Rachel, it could have been 4 hours shorter,
yes.
or it could have been 4 hours longer. And I think it's very rare for a game to do that. It sort of asks a lot of you. I think it does say, can you meet me in the middle here?
Yeah.
But if you choose to, what you have here is a game about a lot of themes that I just don't think many developers would have tackled, and not with so much care, but also unashamed focus. Like this game is like, I want you to really understand what I'm talking about here, and you might not fully connect with this because you weren't there in many instances, but you know, we're going to discuss this now. And yeah, I am floored, absolutely floored by this. It's such a true original.
Yeah. Like we were talking about this a little bit, Liam, but like the dev's background is in like theater, and it's in like experimental immersive art, and you can absolutely tell that from the game.
Yeah.
It's just so bold in its creative decisions. Some of them, at first, I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if I quite like flying through the air to different orbs to move around this environment. Like, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
But like knowing that it's a debut and it keeps switching up so like different mechanics so much, I'm just like, I'm quite happy to do kind of weird things that like, oh, we'll do it for this chapter and then we'll move on. It kind of interrupts the pacing and flow of the story, of its structure. It just feels like so really bold and refreshing and new, and from the studio who's never made a game before, and it's so exciting. And like, oh God, yeah, like other themes are like motherhood. Motherhood is such an interesting, unexplored, mostly in not just in indie games, but in general gaming. Like, and just the way that it is talked about here is just so poignant and fantastic, but also the aspect of like, there's like this alienation that Iris feels coming from like an immigrant family. They live in Canada now, and it's just like, it's just really, and the dynamics between her mum, but also with her father as well. It's just really great. And I was thinking like, in terms of kind of games that I would like, okay, if there was like, you know, in school you study English and you have books that you study, like I can see people studying this game like literary. Like it feels like a game that would be on a reading list somewhere. And it's just such a shocking, devastating, just absolutely cuts you to the core. Humbles you. I do feel like this game humbled me as well. Like I had expectations and it just blew them away. And ever since the demo was like so special. And I was like, this is This is such a special game. And I'm very happy that critically people are talking about it, but I'm not sure many people know about it outside our bubble, potentially. It's
the biggest, it's been overlooked.
Definitely.
And I can sort of see why, because it's visual novel adjacent.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Even though we're saying that it's a bold vision and a true original, as a game, I do think parts of it are quite piss. Like the map. So what I will say is,
wow,
exploring the bunker that you live in, the orchard, is a nightmare. It's, as a space, I think it's up there with Mass Effect's Citadel from the first game. Of like, this is form over function. As a video game space, this is kind of a rotten thing to spend time in. But I love that abrasiveness of it, because it speaks to what you're saying about someone who doesn't come from a video game background.
Yeah, it's quite sweet.
It was using the medium of games in a unique way that isn't like, oh, well, we've had so many games that are set in a hub world. We kind of understand how you move through the space, how we guide the play around, how we, highlight bits. And the fact it doesn't have that is kind of refreshing, like you say. Like,
it's endearing.
Yeah, it's the angriest I've been at a map since Control, on the one hand. But on the other hand, I think it works thematically. Okay, so like, listeners might have noticed, I've not been jumping in on this as much because I'm only a third of the way through this game, and while I'm enjoying it a lot, I've not quite connected with it in the same way that Liam and Rachel have. So I'm trying not to like step over this, because you end up in this whataboutism where you're suddenly playing devil's advocate against this game which you agree should be here. So I didn't want to do that. But I do think I noticed the same thing. I noticed, like, the thing is, I found, and maybe it's my academic background, but I'm approaching this game almost too academically. I think that's part of the problem. But an excellent use of theme was the fact that, like, as you say, the way the world is designed, and it's not all of the worlds, right? The high school makes sense, and the parts in the past make sense. This place doesn't make sense because Iris, as the All-Mother, only knows so much about how to build a functional city that, functionally keeps all of her clones alive. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah, correct.
As like all of the world has been like shrunk down to this one person's frame of reference and is looping back in on itself constantly. And I did find it clever, even as I was like, I'm just so mad. I just want to be back.
But imagine if they shoved a mini map in the corner. Oh god!
I mean, there is a map. Well, there's a map, and it's like a shit map for a reason. But I'm still like,
I didn't play it with the map.
So Rebecca, that. They added the map in.
They added the map. I've only been playing this recently, so I'm only seeing like whatever the 6 month post-release version.
The map is good. It's drawn by All-Mother, so it uses that art style from.
So it's like scribbly kind of.
Yes.
Your point is beautifully made, Rebecca, but you need to keep playing the game.
I know I need to keep playing the game. It's like the thing is, genuinely, I was playing it last week. And I reached the point where I was away this weekend, and I was like, I can grind through the rest of this game, like stay up nights and like try and fit it around. And I was like, I can't. No, it deserves better than that. I'm enjoying it, and I want to keep enjoying it. And that might it might mean at the end of it that I just don't quite see it in the same light that you two do. Even though I do agree it's excellent at doing what it's doing, I might not emotionally connect to it, but I fully think that it deserves its recognition as one of the best indies of the year. But I'm like, you shouldn't do that to this game, right? It would just be it would be physically and mentally painful for me to try and like pull an all-nighter to finish this game, and you wouldn't get the appreciation out of it. So it was better to leave it where I did. It's on my list of games that I'm halfway through to pick up once I get a bit of breathing space, for sure.
I sort of feel as well that this is going to be, like you were saying before, Rachel, about this will be on some reading lists. It just has that vibe of a literary work within the game space. I think this will have its moment later. It sort of feels like something that will be picked up in like 4 or 5 years by either a big streamer or there'll be some kind of media that'll come out, and a bunch of people online will be like, oh, this is very 1000 times resist coded. Go play that if you enjoy X piece of media. But it deserves its flowers now. And I can't stop thinking about it. I just thought it was beautiful in every aspect. And I'm so glad I snuck it in by the end of the year. Because it is the best game I've played in 2024 by far.
Amazing. Well, it's kind of nice that we're ending on a game that we all have played, all have loved, and is Rebecca's number one.
Yeah.
And Liam's number 3. Was it your number 3?
Correct. Yep.
And your number 3. So yeah, Rebecca, why don't you take us into our final game of the year episode?
I mean, I would say joint game of the year. I feel like we all agree on the last one to a degree, and we all agree on this one to a degree. I feel like if we're gonna declare it this year, I think probably these two are like the tandem. And it's funny because they're nothing alike.
I know.
But again, that's so been the tone of the year though, hasn't it? Because yeah, my favourite game, my favourite indie game of the year, my favourite game of the year really overall is Thank Goodness You're Here. Which is funny because when we were discussing it at the start of the year, I was the least interested of the three of us by like some margin. I wasn't really sold on it as a concept, but then again I checked it out and it was the game that as I was playing it I knew was going to be like right up there for me. It's got a weird, like wonderful weird mix of like joyful and completely like relatable to me. So Thank Goodness You're Here is, for those not aware, is a sort of surrealist comedy. I think they call it, was it slapformer?
Mm-hmm. Slapformer.
Yeah. Your only interaction with the world basically is this lemon-headed boy who has been sent from his corporate office in London to a town in the north of England to sell product. It's not entirely clear. That's not really the point. His only interaction with the world is kind of punching things when he is at like knee height to everyone else for some reason. I enjoyed it particularly as I'm not from the north of England, I'm from the Midlands, but I am from like quite a rural working class community, and a lot of what was being spoken about in this game was very familiar to me from my own sort of like childhood and from the things I was familiar with, and also like growing up, as many children of the 90s were, completely saturated in the culture of the 60s through the 80s, more so than like modernity of the time because of where and when I was. It's just so fun. And it's got a lot of bite to it in the way it satirizes, you know, the sort of like rural and regional English communities and the sort of like late 20th century era. And it's got that element of like very, very bawdy jokes that are never quite explicit, largely, but fully know what's going on the entire time, and it's filthy. But it's just, you know, as someone who grew up watching like Open All Hours, you know, it's like if you took that and took like Mr. Ben and all of the other like weird little cultural artifacts of that time and place in England and just made a really, really funny, weird game where you punch things until the world kind of like falls into place. It just, it's by the same people who published Untitled Goose Game, and you can see why they're like a matched pair of games in so many ways. It is about havoc, but also the character you play as. Someone pointed out that like it subverts the traditional narrative of someone from a city going to a town and learning about like the real heart of a community and what it is to be in, like, you know, he goes to this town and people just treat him like shit from beginning to end, and like and he's just like being like pinballed around from one ridiculous crisis to another, and it's so funny. It's like it never lets up on just being a comedy. It never kind of goes too serious, but it just is a joy to play from start. And it's literally, for me, it was the game where I finished and I was like, I'm gonna start again and just play and see all the things I've missed.
Yeah, funniest game of the year, hands down.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. I think it probably says a lot about my mental state this year as much as anything, that I've had a pretty even split between extremely cheerful and extremely dark games.
Yeah, true.
But this was just like just playing it, and it's fun to watch other people interact with this game as well, because like a lot of the people whose content I watch are American and they don't get half the jokes, and I can kind of be like,
delicious.
Watching them all try and work out who Milk Snatcher is one of my favourite things. Just generally, It's like,
so good.
There is a whole other side to this game where you watch Americans get confused by this game, and it's like it brings a whole new dimension to a game you already love. It's great.
It feels like DLC for it is watching an American play through it on YouTube after finishing it.
Yes.
It's like an extra layer of enjoyment when you're like, they don't understand what Mrs. Meggs is. They don't understand what that's parodying. And it's just very pleasing.
It's a very cynical comedy, but it is a relentless comedy. And I just... everything it did, from the animation to the the very simple but very effective way of navigating through this world, was just such a joy. It's the sort of game. It's the game that when I went home and saw my family recently, and people were like, "What good games should we play?" I was like, "This is the one, everybody." This is like, for instance, my aunt and uncle. He is really into gaming. She is kind of like, she'll drop in for a game every 3 years. And I was like, this needs to be the one. You will love this. It is so your humor, but also is the perfect thing for someone who doesn't play games much, but would love to check out a fun thing that they can relate to.
Yeah, so funny. So memeable, so quotable.
The vocal stems. We just
love Big Ron.
It's changed how we...
Big Ron.
It's vocal stems all the way down. Whoops, all vocal stems. That's all it is.
Oh God, Mick and I cannot stop quoting this game just around the house. Like... it's changed the way that, like, I mean, we've been together.
Your lexicon changes.
Yeah. We've been together 15 years in February, right? We've been together a long time. 80% of our communication is memes and quotes now. And like, this game is such a huge chunk of that all of a sudden.
It successfully manages to gamify or make interactive such a specific type of British comedy that it's almost kind of remarkable that anyone ever did it. Like, it's so Vic and Bob. It's so, mid-2000s comedies. It's so 80s and 60s. It's just like a soup of cultural references, and yet it manages to make it its own and manages to make it accessible enough that people from other cultures can still enjoy it for what it is. There's enough jokes in there that, I think they said this on the interview I did with them, that like 80% of it anyone can enjoy. And then like 10% of it, some people can, and like 5% some people can, and like 2% some very, very like small amount of people can. But it for me, I just think it's so tightly written. That's its most remarkable achievement. Is that it really, as a game, it's sort of like, it's a very light touch game. Everything is in service of a bit, and you can't like not respect that. It's the perfect length. I don't think there's any fat on it whatsoever. It's so lean as an experience. And like you say, there's just so many memorable moments in it. Like, I think about Price Shaggers just as a name so much, because it's so like, there's so, it pinballs between, much like The Tiny Salesman, between like, he is a kind of cerebral joke, and then he is a shop that's just called Price Shaggers. Yeah. Or he is like, he is the policeman polishing his truncheon in silhouette, and it looks a bit dodge. Or just the bit where the policeman says to the character portrayed by Matt Berry, by the way, the voice cast in this game, absolutely incredible.
So funny.
But the bit where the policeman says, "Oh, Rog, there's a thief on the loose. He's a bootlegger. He's selling things that don't work," and Matt Berry just goes, "Shit!" And it's just like, there's no nuance to that whatsoever. It's just Matt Berry saying a swear word really loud, and it's so
much
balmy.
Milk shy no more.
Oh no,
milk shy no more. It's so good.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna give you as well my hottest take. I'm working on something for the day job, because this is my favorite indie of the year. Probably my favorite game of the year. My favorite AAA of the year is probably Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And I realized they're the same game structurally. They are very different takes on little man goes to new town where he is fish out of water, tries to help people with their weird problems. And I'm like, that's been my vibe for this year, is definitely, I just want to be a little man in a weird town. It's kind of applies to Little Kitty as well, almost. I want to be a little man in a big town, just trying to
a little
help.
guy.
That's my fucking life, mate.
Trying to maybe cause some havoc, like maybe help some nice people, but also just like maybe wreck things because it's fun. That is the theme of 2024, in my opinion.
Love that.
No smacky bum bum.
Closed.
Closed because of Smacky
Smacky
Bum
Bum
Bum.
Bum.
Do you have any additional takes on this, Rachel?
No, just a bunch of quotes.
Do it.
No, we've said a lot of them.
Oh, God. Okay.
Big
Right.
ones, big pies.
I gotta be like,
Lad!
Carrie Louise Pickles.
Oh, God.
I should have known.
Yeah.
Taking my bloody screwdriver.
Oh my God, anytime I borrow anything from Mick and don't return it immediately, I hear it from next door. It's like, that's enough my pen as your produce, is it?
I can't do it no more. It's too big.
Oh, what else? Oh, the one I was quoting yesterday a lot was, no, Aldi.
My favourite line is when they're in, the old woman's in Mrs. Meg's, and she says, can I have a chicken bake, please? And she says, you can, but we've got no butter, so it's vegan. Is that okay? And the old woman goes, rather shit bed. It's just so, it's so beautifully delivered.
Right, before we quote Thank Goodness You're Here into oblivion.
I know, but it's so fun.
We have come to the end of our very special 2024 Game of the Year. Congrats!
Holy shit.
We've done
We did it. We
Congrats.
absolutely did it. And it hasn't ran as long as I thought it would to this point.
No,
Right.
we've done very well. But yeah, I mean, if you liked our picks, we have a Discord. Please tell us. I love seeing what people's Game of the Years are in our
Same.
Discord.
Oh, definitely.
So, yeah, absolutely jump in there. Links are below, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen. And yeah, we want to know what your Game of the Year was. But we hope you've enjoyed our countdown. We're not doing hyperfixations because it's way too long anyway. Right? Did you want to?
I could go for hyperfixations, but if we ran too long, I'm happy just to end it there.
So let's end with some hyperfixations.
Oh no. Should I go first because I
go on.
willed this sequence into existence?
Yes.
So we had Brat Summer. Feels like a long
Yes.
time ago now, doesn't it? We had Chappelle, Rowan, Autumn.
Yep.
And I think you'll all agree, the kids on TikTok agree, it's My Sims Winter. Are we right? They've just released that collection
Hell
on
yeah.
Switch. We're all My Sims coded. The kids are asking, where's more My Sims? Now, I haven't played My Sims yet. My sister and I are buying it for each other for Christmas because we're just cute like that.
Great.
But I kind of fancied a little bit of My Sims, so I've been playing Go-Go Town on the Steam Deck by Prideful Sloth.
Oh, yeah.
And, this game's the good shit. It's so good. It's the perfect pre-Christmas Steam Deck game. You play as a random person who is kidnapped by the mafia, put into a bag and thrown into the middle of like an abandoned town and told, okay, now you're the mayor, make it nice
Amazing.
again.
Goodness.
It's basically a mix between My Sims in the sense that you are recruiting townspeople to come into your town, you're building little structures for them, and then you're putting them to work effectively for the benefit of tourists who give you different currencies to buy more things. And also it's got a bit of Animal Crossing in there, and that you're, just everything is just in service of making your town cuter and more appealing to you as the player. And it's just so perfectly paced. There's like zero challenge to it. Has a little bit of automation stuff to it. So there's like different zones, like forestry and things like that. And I love this game. I think it's great. Last year I had House Flipper 2. I think this year I'll have Go-Go Town until I reach the end of its early access content, which I've like played 5 hours over the last 3 days, gang.
Oh, wow.
Incredible. What's your chosen vehicle to toot around town in? I really like the tricycle.
Yeah, I'm big on the tricycle and the skateboard. I've just got the go-kart, which is a bit too drifty for me, but I absolutely love just running people over, zipping around. This is a really cool game. Yeah, it's really good. It's great on the Steam Deck, and I'm surprised I haven't seen more people talk about it. I just think there's like an abundance of games like this, so maybe it got a little bit lost in the noise. But good.
Yeah.
It's a good game. Really good.
Nice. That's one that I've had my eye on since we covered it for PAX. It was part of our.
We did like a video about
Yes.
it was Go-Go Town, Slay the Princess.
Slay the Princess.
Oh, yes.
Xenotilt, a game I've not played, but gave me the best t-shirt I've ever owned. That t-shirt just is still so nice. And Paper...
The
Paper
Trail.
Craft one?
Papatura?
Paper Trail. Paper Trail. Yeah.
Paper Trail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, a good collection there. Yeah, I used to play Go-Go Town. It looks so cute.
Yeah, me too. I mean,
and I like the automation stuff. That is really cool.
Yes,
I think that's
I
what
do as
separates
well.
it from other kind of village sims, buildy sims, is that like you can like set different machines to do shit for you, which I love.
Yeah, and hire people to do it for you. It
Yes.
reminds me a little bit. This is going to be a bit of a wild connection, but there was a mobile game called SimCity Build It. That was like a SimCity game where you would build factories and combine items. And like that was mired and mobile game wank. But this kind of gives me the same brain tickle, but it doesn't have any like monetization stuff in. So yeah, it's great.
Hooray!
I really like it. Do either of you have a hyperfixation?
No.
Kind of
I can think of one, though.
I can...
What?
Like, so the thing is, right, I... recently, because we're recording quite near to Christmas. Well, not quite. Actually, to be fair, it's December 4th. The day.
I suppose.
My brain is already just fried, clearly. But like, recently, I guess my hyperfixation at the moment is just like, I'm trying to create more space in my day to just do stuff I enjoy because I enjoy it. And like, because I have been pushing myself quite hard this year, as we realized when we compared the games that we played this year, and I had played as many as both of you combined. You know, I've been pushing quite hard to like get a lot of things done, and it's not that it's been unrewarding, but I was like, sometimes I realized I would go weeks without just doing something that just looked fun, because I would be so dedicated to trying to like optimize my time. So my thing lately has been that I made a little list, and I was like, I'm not going to like make it to stressful levels, but I made a list of like a few books I want to read, a few games I want to play, a few films I want to see, and was just like, every day I'm going to try and make sure I get at least half an hour just to do one of those things that's just for me, and not, you know, much as I love doing the podcast, it's not for the podcast, it's not for work, it's just to create a bit of like space for me to think, this is a thing I'm looking forward to, and I don't have to wait until, you know, I feel like I held off on a lot of things going, I'll wait until this time, and now it's December and there's just not been the time, and so I'm like, you got to make the time.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying, like, one of the things that it's not like a New Year's resolution, because I've been trying to do it incrementally sort of all year really, is to be more intentional with the way I spend my time. So I've been trying to like delete fiddly little mobile apps off my phone and be like, that is time that you could spend like reading a book that you want to read, or find a game that you want to play that you can play in short bursts instead.
Yep.
And so weirdly, I just like, I don't know why, but like opening the first door on my advent calendar this year really triggered this desire in me to be like, I want to look back on December and say that every day I did something that just made me happy. And so that's been what I've been doing recently. And I'm sure I'll check in with all the cool, weird stuff that I checked out in that when we record again in the new year. But yeah, that's been me.
That's so nice to hear, Rebecca. Like, first of all, welcome to the other side. It's so much less stressful over here. Removing all the fiddly apps on your mobile. I was tempted to download Blue Sky the other day, but I had a word with myself. I said, no, don't do it. I'm really pleased to hear that. I'm really That's so exciting.
It's so nice.
Yeah, it's going, like I say, we're on day 4, and it's a modest goal, and I've so far achieved it. So I'm quite happy with that. You know?
We love that for you. That's wonderful.
I don't have a hyperfixation, but I have just remembered that Infinity Nikki comes out tomorrow.
Oh, don't even.
It does.
I'm working on that. It's work.
I will definitely be playing Infinity Nikki, and I think that will be my hyperfixation all of December, because it looks fucking amazing and I'm so excited. So
it's been getting some good reviews.
It's very cute.
Eurogamer gave it 4-star.
Yeah, it's my buddy Jess at Eurogamer was their reviewer, and I trust her implicitly in these matters. So.
Yeah, I was very much like, whatever it scores, I don't care, because it's a girly dress-up game and I want to play it. But yeah, I'm so happy to see that it has been reviewing well. And yeah, I'm very excited for it to come out tomorrow. And so that's my predetermined hyperfixation.
Seeing the hype around it is nice as well, given how like female coded it is. It's just nice to see it actually get like everyone's going, oh, this might actually be low key one of the like late entry for one of the big hits of the year. But I think it's got legs.
I'm so excited.
I hope you love it. I hope you love it.
an aggressive, free-to-play game full of microtransactions, but for the girlies. This is...
I mean, honestly, that whole genre is for the girlies, just no one ever talks about. At least people are talking about it. That's like...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that's got me excited. But
Take my money.
I need to know
wait to play it.
how you find it.
We should all let each other know how we get on.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
we can be friends.
I'm sure we can
share
be friends.
outfits.
Is there like multiplayer in it?
Oh man, I should
don't
know.
know.
To be fair, I'm like secondary guides person from our team on it, so I've been split between this and some other games, and I'm picking it up.
You got to share outfits. Outfit of the day.
Right, there will definitely, based on my knowledge of other games in this genre, there will be some way to add friends and interact in a way.
Okay.
But I don't know what it is yet because the press server keeps being weird to me, so I haven't got any friends in the press server.
No, we'll be your friends. We'll make an Indieventure guild.
Yeah, sorry. Well, tomorrow I have to wipe the press server and start again as a civilian. So you know.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Right now that brings us to the end of this very special episode. We hope you've enjoyed listening. Like I said before, please let us know what your game of the years are in our Discord.
Yes, absolutely.
Because there are so many indies and so many great indies from this year. So we really want to hear what you guys have been playing and what your top games are. And, you know, if you agree with us or not. Actually, we don't want to hear if you don't. Just keep that to yourself. Anyway. But yeah, that's everything from us. We hope you have a wonderful Christmas and happy holidays. And we will see you after our long extended break. There will be releases. But
there will be an intermission.
We are taking a nice long break.
We absolutely are. We'll be back on the 23rd of January with episode 31. But there'll be one treat in between this episode and that one.
Oh yeah, there will be one treat. So yeah, that's it from us. Speak to you soon. Goodbye.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Merry goodbye.
Merry goodbye.
Indieventure is a video games podcast created, produced, hosted, and edited by Rachel Watts, Rebecca Jones, and me, Liam Richardson. For more information, including a list of every game we mentioned in this episode, make sure to check out our website, indieventurepodcast.co.uk. You can get in touch by sending your questions, comments, and feedback to contact@indieventurepodcast.co.uk. You can support the show by rating us 5 stars and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast provider of choice. Some of the games we talk about on the show may have been provided to us for free for review consideration. Our intro music and stings were composed for us by Ollie Newbury. Check the episode description to hear more of his excellent tunes. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks for another episode of Indieventure. Bye for now.